Well, it depends on what the exemption is that you're claiming. If, and I'm going to think in terms of bankruptcy here because I'm a bankruptcy attorney. So let's say you're in a Chapter 7 and you exempt your clothing. No one is going to be looking at your clothes to see if you are entitled to an unlimited clothing exemption. Similarly with your household goods and furnishings, unless that little table that you have happens to be the table on which Marie Antoinette wrote her last will and testament before she was guillotined. That, of course, is not just a household good, it's a rare artifact. But for the most part, no one is going to be checking up on your exemptions, unless it's a more expensive item, something that could be challenged. So let's say, for argument's sake, you are exempting your motor vehicle. Well, exempting the motor vehicle depends on which table we're working with. If we're in the homeowner's table, it's really quite stingy. It's $3,150 on the equity in the car. We take the market value of the car. I generally use Kelly Bluebook. And from that, we subtract out the amount you still owe. What's left over is the equity. Now, if it exceeds, and by the way, that $3,150 is spread out over all cars that you have. So if you're claiming that the car is worth $500 and that's why you're able to exempt it, well, a trustee might kind of poke around. I've had on occasion a trustee want photographs of the car, photographs of the odometer. So somebody might check up if it's a motor vehicle. If it's a house, well, most trustees are going to use certain services that are online. Let's say you file your Chapter 7, the trustee gets your name and social security number and enters it into various search engines, and up will pop all the real estate you've been on title to in the last several years and all the motor vehicles you've been on title to in the last several years. And one of the things that'll come up is how much you paid for your house if you're a homeowner. And the trustee then will take a look at the, maybe start with Zillow because that's free, and find out what the current market value of the house is. Now, admittedly, Zillow tends to highball things a bit, but at least it's a starting point. And if it looks like, hey, wait a minute, this house has really shot up in value. You bought it in 1985 for $50,000, and now it looks like it's worth $2 million, and you're claiming that you get to exempt all your equity with a $600,000 equity exemption, that trustee may want to look into that to make sure you really have a house that has equity that is under $600,000. So it's really the big ticket things that come up. Or if you have multiple motor vehicles and it's clear you can't exempt them all, well, then the trustee may poke around to challenge those. In the renter's table, there is a little bit more flexibility in exempting motor vehicles. First off, the motor vehicle exemption starts at a higher value, $5,850. And in addition, in the renter's table, because renters don't have that equity in their principal residence exemption, is something called the wild card exemption. And that's really what it's called. And it gives you, in addition to all the other exemptions, $30,825 worth of exempting power that you get to use to supplement other exemptions, or maybe to exempt something that doesn't seem to fit into any category. So let's say you had $10,000 worth of motor vehicle equity. Well, you'd protect part of it using the $5,850 car exemption. And then you dip into that wild card pot and grab enough to protect the rest of the equity. Now, of course, in the process, you'd partially deplete the wild card, but you'd protect the cars. Things that you absolutely have to use the wild card for are money in the bank, stocks, bonds, cash on hand. But if you're a good candidate for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the chances are you'll be able to protect everything, especially if you're not a homeowner. There is no wild card exemption in the homeowner's table, though. So that is kind of the trade-off. Yes, you get this very generous equity in your principal residence exemption, But in exchange for that, you get no wild card. So exempting other things in the homeowner's table is a little bit more challenging.